Is this thing on? Okay. Morning, sophomores. This is Mr. Goodrow. So as you can figure out, I'm not here today, so I decided to take it upon myself to give you a screencast of what we're going to be doing later this week, more specifically on aquatic macroinvertebrates, okay? So you should have a note page, a partially filled note page, and just follow along. Here we go. So, your first blank. We're talking about aquatic macroinvertebrates. Aquatic equals water. Second, we have macro, meaning visible with your eyes. Micro, not visible with your eyes. So aquatic macroinvertebrates. So the next part is invertebrates, which are animals without a backbone or a spine, like a mayfly. So, on the big river journey, you'll see aquatic macroinvertebrates. Woo! So, these are tiny organisms, such as insects that live in lakes, ponds, and rivers. We hardly notice them, but they serve a very important role. They feed on the algae and other plants that are based in the aquatic food chain. So, what's an aquatic food chain or food web? It's a story of what eats what. It includes everything that lives in or near the water. Big things such as peoples, turtles, raccoons, fox, eagles, ducks, birds, big fish, little fish, seaweeds, frogs, clams, and mussels. Little things. Aquatic macroinvertebrates, insect eggs, snails, algae, aquatic worms, tadpoles, phytoplankton, which is basically a fancy word for saying tiny aquatic plants, or zooplankton, which is tiny aquatic animals. So this is a general idea of what a food web is, what eats what. And this is just another example, a more complicated example about the Chesapeake Bay waterbird food web. This is just with water birds. So did you know? Many aquatic invertebrates, like this damselfly, spend their nymph stage in water. So a nymph is the stage of development between the egg and the adult. When the nymph development is complete, the mature nymph climbs from the water and flies up and begins its adult stage. It then breeds and returns to the water to lay eggs. This cycle then begins again. So, insect metamorphosis. There's two types. There's complete metamorphosis, which is egg to larva to pupa and adult. Our honeybees follow a complete metamorphosis. However, there are quite a few insects that also have incomplete metamorphosis, which is basically they have an egg and then the early nymph, late nymph to the adult. So in incomplete metamorphosis, basically the egg hatches and it looks just like a small adult and it just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So mayflies spend 2 years as nymphs living in water before developing into adults and flying in the air. After hatching as adults, they live for a few hours to 3 weeks. As adults, they do not eat. They actually don't have mouth parts when they're adults. The job of adult mayflies is one thing, and that is to mate during their short life. Females return to the water to lay their eggs, and that's it. It's a little bleak, I guess. So, this is an example of a mayfly hatch on Lake Superior. Mayflies are highly sensitive and can only live in clean water. That's something worth remembering. So the mosquito. Oh, great. The mosquitoes undergo 4 stages of development over a 15 to 20 day period. They begin their life as an egg laid on the surface of ponds and quiet waters. In the larval stage, they hang and breathe from the surface and feed on tiny algae and microscopic animals. That's what that picture is on the top over there, top right. In the pupal stage, they also hang from the water and swim around. When they emerge as adults, they rest on the surface water to dry their wings and then fly out to mate and return to the water to lay eggs. If the female has a blood meal, more eggs develop. Yes, only female mosquitoes bite. The males do not bite. Only females bite. So one thing you might see is a giant water bug. They can grow up to about 3 inches. They use their forelegs to grasp and hold tadpoles or other insects. And they basically have a large, almost like a needle. And they it stabs into their particular prey and then sucks out the buggy contents like a milkshake. They can live in lakes and ponds. So macroinvertebrates can tell us if the water is clean or dirty. Some can survive in both clean and polluted water, such as leeches and snails. Macroinvertebrates can tell us if the water is clean or dirty. Some can survive in medium clean water, such as dragonflies. The nymph stage on the left side of the picture lives in the water 3 to 4 years before emerging as a flying adult dragonfly on the right. They only live for a year. Just like as soon as the frost hits, they're all gone. They can't live through the frost times. All right, macroinvertebrates, some can only live in clean water, such as mayflies and caddisflies. Every species of animal has a range of physical and chemical conditions in which it can survive. Some invertebrates are sensitive and will not survive in polluted waters. Otherwise, others can tolerate a little to a lot of pollution. It just depends. There's a spectrum. In the cleanest ponds, lakes, and rivers, you'll find the greatest diversity of aquatic invertebrates. So let me just say that again. In the cleanest ponds, lakes, and rivers, you'll find the greatest diversity of aquatic invertebrates. You'll have the most ranging of different species. In polluted waters, only a few species can survive. So, kinds of ponds. Clean. Great picture. Natural shoreline with a variety of plants, no man-made structures, room for lots of wildlife. This is nice. Here's another one. This is called medium clean. There is a natural shoreline. There's a lot of grasses at the shore. Problem is that rain runs off the parking lots, like cars leak oil, and then this washes into the water. And then urban area has limited wildlife habitat, just space. I mean, you can see in that picture there, you can see, what is that? An apartment complex. There's like 2 apartment complexes and an extra foods grocery store. So medium clean. And then, unfortunately, at the bottom is polluted. There are no plants next to the shoreline. There's got to be some sort of chemical pollution at work here. And some trees might attract wildlife, and that's about it. This is a picture of a polluted reservoir in Arizona. They actually put a fence up to make sure people don't go into it. Collecting specimens. We're going to be taking a D-net and a bucket to a pond, and we'll drag the net through the weeds along the shore in the shallow water. We'll examine the net for macroinvertebrates. We'll hand pick out the inverts and place them into a bucket and repeat. And, of course, stop and listen to the sounds of nature along the way. So aquatic macroinvertebrates in winter, they're inactive. They've adapted to surviving overwintering, freezing, and then thawing. So they can actually survive being underwater, frozen for a period of time. Insect eggs wait in the mud for the water to warm in the spring. Algae still grows and fish still swim around. And that is it for aquatic macroinvertebrates. So probably where I'm going to send you to now is Google Classroom, where you're going to watch the River Watch and the Macroinvertebrate ID videos. So if you have any questions about this, shoot me an email and I'll get back to you.